Welcome back, everyone, to 101 Questions that Church Planters Ask. I'm your host, Danny Parmalee, and today I'm super excited because we have with us Steve Shadrach to help answer the question, why should I raise financial support? Now, the reason I'm so excited about having Steve on here today is he's the author of the book, God Ask, and this is one of the required readings for the church planters, all of the church planters that I coach before they start raising support. But I'll before we jump into all of that, Steve, why don't you just give us a little bit of background of who you are?
Well, thank you, Danny, for putting me on today. I'm honored to join your crew. I grew up in Dallas, Texas. I'm married to a wonderful woman for 37 years and 5 kids and 8 grandkids. And we live in Fayetteville, Arkansas, up in northwest corner, Razorback land.
Yes.
We hope we have a better season this year. We're in the SEC West, which is like pro football,
Right.
But I grew up in Dallas, came to Christ right at the end of my senior year, came up here to go to college. Wasn't planning on joining a fraternity, but lo and behold, got into one, and for 3 or 4 years tried to reach these, what I call hellions for Christ, and it kind of set the course of my life. I wasn't planning on going to seminary, but I did. I wanted to honor my father. Really, he was wanting me to do that, and it was a good experience, but I really wanted to work with college students, and I came back to my Fayetteville here to come on staff with my church as the college pastor. And so for 4 years, I was a pastor, but I struggled with some of the different pastorly duties, that they have us do. And I realized I love students, but I don't think I'm called to be in on a pastoral role in a local church. And so myself and some of our key leaders that we had developed in this college ministry launched out and started a 501c3 nonprofit campus ministry called Student Mobilization, or STUMO. It's kind of been known now for years. And so my pastor graciously gave me 6 weeks of severance. I thought that was, very, very, very nice of him. But I was highly motivated, Danny. I was married with 3 young children and 1 on the way. So you can tell that has a way of lighting a fire under a man. And I really didn't know what to do. I knew we had to raise our support to start this organization and start with my own personal support. I had observed 2 others, that were campus ministers. One of them was a good role model, and he seemed to be able to provide for his family and provide for his ministry. The other one, man, he was just scraping the bottom of the barrel, and his family and his house and his clothes, and it was a bad role model.
Yeah.
So I said, I think I'm going to choose option A. I like the way that guy is providing for his family and ministry better, but still I had no training or no books or anything. And so all I knew what to do is I had a 6-week window.
Wow.
And I said, honey, I'm going to focus on this. And so bear with me. But I met every person I've really had ever known in my short little life, Danny. And I got with them face to face. I shared with them this vision of reaching college students for Christ, and asked them to come onto my monthly support team, and then let them answer. That's a wild thought, to let them answer,
Yeah.
And lo and behold, by God's grace, 6 weeks later, we were at full support, and we were able then to launch this ministry and get started. So that was 36 years ago, or some number like that. So I've lived on support for 36 years, and I can tell your listeners, it's very possible to fully support your family, fully support your ministry in very bountiful ways, fruitful ways, by living on the ongoing support of others. And so that's been an amazing experience for me. In fact, I wouldn't want to live any other way. If you came to me right now or at any stage along the way and said, Steve, I know it's so hard to maintain your support team and all, let me just pay your entire salary for the rest of the way out. You've earned it, Steve. No, I'd say I wouldn't trade these relationships and this team. I almost feel sorry now for people that don't have a team around them.
That's
Pray,
great.
to give, to encourage. So it's not really about the money, Danny. It's not about the money at all. There are much bigger reasons as to why to raise support than just, gosh, I need some money to pay the bills.
Yeah, that's excellent. Now, the book title is a little weird. Every time I tell it to a church planter, they kind of wrinkle their face, wrinkle their like, what do you mean? Tell me a little bit, because I know that it's really the overall premise of the book.
It is, and I can't claim that it was my idea. I've really never had an original thought in all my life, Danny. Have you had one?
Sometimes I think I do, but then I find out later that someone else already said
someone
it.
else came up with this before I did.
Yeah.
Well, I had been doing a seminar in the year 2000. I'm really showing my age now. I had transitioned the leadership of that student mobilization ministry organization to the next generation. I can start something, but you better not leave me in charge too long. Do you know people like that?
Yes.
and so I was starting to get invitations to train other organizations, and so we created this boot camp for personal support raising in the year 2000, and it went well, and we trained, I don't know, maybe 1,500 organizations since then, in every month a boot camp in a different city, and now we're in different countries. But then it came time, I was burned out. We had to transition this boot camp from let's think about this, an 18-hour lecture seminar in 2 days, talk about wearing people out, to a 2-day facilitated workshop.
Okay.
And so that's what it is now. But we had to have a book that would kind of give all the goodies that we've been training people on for all these years.
Yeah.
And so really I took the boot camp, the original version, and put it into a book.
Okay.
And at first it was kind of a manual, kind of a dry, dusty step 1, step 2 manual. And I said, we got to make this more readable, more enjoyable. Let's pack it out with some great stories. Let's give it a title that will really, And so a missionary friend of mine in Kenya, as we were trying to get the word out, give us some ideas on a title. He's the one that shared this with me, Tom Stickney in East Africa. And he said, when I go into a support appointment, he said, I'm not making the Tom ask. It's not me.
Yeah.
It's somehow asking them for their money to give to me somehow. He said, there's a third person involved in this appointment. It's not a Tom ask, he said, it's a God ask.
Yeah.
And so God has asked me to come and approach this person and invite them. But then I want them to make the God ask too. I want them to go to the Lord and ask God, is this where you want me to invest the money? And so that triangle concept that we unpack in the book, there are 3 people involved in those appointments, I promise you. It's the asker, it's the potential donor, but it's the Lord himself. And when you realize that, it takes a lot of the fears away. It takes a lot of the struggles and the fears that we naturally face asking people for money.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Now you spend a good portion of the book in the beginning, giving biblical reasoning and precedent for raising support. Could go on and on, but I want to just give you 2 questions, kind of packed in one. Why do you spend that much time? So kind of the why behind it, and then also what's maybe your favorite kind of New Testament example of raising financial support?
I've had people over the years say, Shadrach, why do you spend all this time on the Old Testament and the New Testament before you ever get to the goodies? The practical how to.
Tell me how to do it.
Yeah, so. give me the technique. And I will say, brother or sister, if you have the right motivation, if you have the right convictions, you'll find a way to raise your support. But I can give you the little tips on how to make the call and how to make the ask and things. Those are really secondary things. The core issue, especially the foundation that'll keep you in the saddle over the years that you minister, is the why question. And that's where you go to the Old Testament examples, New Testament examples, certain passages that really there is a huge biblical basis of the why behind personal support raising. And so that's really, if someone can develop a biblical conviction, and what I've observed, Danny, is that almost everyone has strong opinions on this. Oh, I mean, your uncle is, your mom and dad, your sister, your brother, your pastor, either they don't understand personal support raising, they've had some bad experiences, or they just downright oppose it. You know what? Virtually none of them have ever done a thorough inductive, objective, personal Bible study on the topic. So really, they don't have much room to speak because they're just speaking out of their fears and their perceptions. And well, that's why the God Ask, about almost half of it is personal Bible study to give them those biblical convictions. And probably the one that I love to go to most that people don't really realize because it's kind of hidden back in there is Luke 8, 1-3, where Jesus himself.
I knew we were going to get a Jesus juke from you,
hey,
right?
Brother,
but you can't, if Jesus did it, it's good enough for him.
What would hurt my bracelet? What would Jesus do, Well, if the Son of God chose, think about that. He could have chosen all kinds of different methods during his 3-year ministry to fund himself and his men and their ministry and their personal needs. He could have attached money changers to their hips and cha-ching, money flying everywhere. That would have drawn crowds. No, he chose, the Son of God chose to live off the ongoing support from individuals to support the personal and ministry expenses of he and his men. And lo and behold, in my quiet time, I'm reading through Luke 8. There he is doing it himself. In Luke 9, the very first few verses, now he's sending out the 12 2 by 2 to go into towns. But before they start their ministry, they've got to raise their support. They've got to find a person of peace, someone who will provide room and board for them and provide for all their needs. So now they can use it as a base of operations, to do their ministry in that city. Lo and behold, the next morning in my quiet time, Luke 10, now he's sending out the 70 to do the exact same thing. So if your listeners are struggling with, is this really biblical? I think you can look at a lot of Old Testament examples, certainly a number of New Testament, Paul himself, but even Jesus himself. So we're on pretty good ground, I think.
Yes. Awesome. Okay. I often hear church planners say, and even as they're sharing their stories with other church planners, raising support is just this necessary evil. What is so wrong with this perspective? And if people could see the cringe on your face right now. So
yeah. That is so typical. It's common. I don't want to make someone feel too bad because they're probably in the majority, we all have perceptions before we come into this. Most of them are probably negative perceptions. We certainly have people in our lives that are speaking out against this. It's just, I don't know if your audience is international or not, but it just feels so un-American. We pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. We don't ask anybody for anything. And yet asking is an incredible biblical concept. 147 times in the gospel alone that we either, asking God or asking others. We've got to get into our mind that asking is good. Asking is biblical. And that if we spend the rest of our life asking God and asking others, we'll be fulfilling the scriptures in so many ways. James 4:2, we have not because we ask not. So if someone thinks it's a necessary evil, they've certainly never done the inductive Bible study. They can find that in the appendix of the God Ask if they want to get started on a Bible study. But if someone also thinks support raising about money, they've already got 2 strikes against them, Danny. Mm-hmm. So, this is bonus material, but, support raising, personal support raising is not about money. It's primarily about vision and it's about relationships. Okay. And so this, I believe, I've come to the conclusion that personal support raising is the greatest mobilization strategy that God ever came up with. Because think about your audience. If they're about to go out and launch their support raising and they're going to have 40, 60, 80 appointments, some huge number of one-on-one, keep some social distancing there, but one-on-one appointments with their network. God has plopped them right smack dab in the middle of 100, 200 people that have been part of their lives over the last 25, 35, 45 years. They would not be having individual appointments with each of those people unless they were required to raise their support. Yep. And what are they going to do in those appointments? They're going to share their testimony. They're going to share the vision for reaching the world for Christ, a vision for planting a church, maybe even sharing the gospel in those appointments, one-on-one. And so this is a sneaky way for God to use you in your network, and you're the only person that can mobilize your network. If you view this as a necessary evil, you're going to miss the joy and the power and the potential of going to those 60, 80, 100 people face to face. And for the first time ever, probably, and first time in their whole life, they'll ever have a Great Commission worker come and sit with them face to face and share with them about reaching the world for Christ, and then inviting them to partner with them. This will probably be the only time they'll ever have. Don't botch it. Don't ruin this opportunity in your network that God has put you right in the middle to be the catalyst, the mobilizer. It's just an amazing opportunity that someone has. And so it's not about money. In fact, if you go into your support appointments and they sense it's just about you getting some money or getting to 100%, they probably are not going to come on your team. They may give you a charitable donation. I don't want any charitable donations. I want ministry partners. I want investors. And so they've got to do the Bible study. That's the place to begin. It really is.
That's great. And the other thing I remind church planters is that they will be raising support for their entire lives. Now, it may look different, and maybe it's not personal, maybe it's not one-on-one, but if God's called you to something, this goes to the whole vision and relationships. He's going to use different people in different ways through the church, whether it's passing a plate, capital campaigns, whatever, but you are constantly trusting God to provide resources, for you. So what would you say are the biggest barriers to raising that, 100% personal support for church planters? Because, some are probably hearing this, they're excited now. What would you say are some of those barriers or the biggest barriers?
Well, I've quit doing seminars really like this, to be honest, because if someone does a 1 hour workshop or listens to a podcast, they think, hey, man, I've got it. It's done. I've listened to the guru or something. I got the gems. I'm ready to go. No. These boot camps, these 2-day boot camps, we don't really let them even come until they do about 30 to 40 hours of preparation. Okay. And so the one big obstacle, Danny, is they don't see the necessity to prepare properly. Okay. It'd be like if they want to go and plant a church, but they've never read a book. They've never gone to a seminary class. They've never been to a seminar. They just are going to go out there and just kind of wing it and see what happens. No, I have to believe your church planters are doing a lot of preparation in a lot of areas. Don't skimp on this one. This is a biggie. And so the lack of preparation, the lack of Bible study is a biggie. I would say also many of your listeners would have spouses. If you try to launch out into this without including your spouse, without letting them having them do the Bible study, without letting them do the training, and it's just you without them, I think you're going to have some real problems and struggles there. I would at the very least have your spouse read the God Ask, do the exercises at the back. They may not go to a full-blown boot camp or something, but it can either help oneness in marriage or where and how you get your money to support your family. Oh boy, that is a biggie. Or it can create, a wedge in that oneness.
Right.
And so I would say them not including and involving their spouse. I would say another obstacle is someone who wants to shortcut it. Steve, you don't understand how busy I am. Steve, if you just understood how important a person I am, you would know that I don't have time to have 60 face-to-face appointments. No, you better make the time. Right. If you try to, send out an email to everybody, or, how many packets have I received over the years from guys who are trying to, short circuit this thing. And so, finally,
a GoFundMe page, because they saw someone else just raise millions.
Please, I would beg of you. Maybe down the road, if your kids want to do a short-term mission trip and you want to put a donate here, GoFundMe thing on Facebook or something, that's fine. But don't embarrass yourself by choosing some sort of I won't even go there. No, lend your supporters enough dignity and honor. See, if you go to them face to face, that communicates two things. It communicates to them that they are important to you. They're important enough to you that you're going to travel across town or across state or across country, to see them. That's what it communicates, first of all, which that's powerful. Secondly, thing it communicates is what I have to say is very important. So if you decide to use letters or just texts or phone calls or emails or GoFundMe or something, it really tells that person that they're not important to you, and what you have to say is not important to you. So we've been training church planters now almost 20 years. And this model that you guys are suggesting is an excellent model where you go out from scratch and raise your entire support, and you're asking for a 3 to 5 year window. And then you're saying, as the church is up and going and growing, I can start to wean my support back. And so you're really launching us. Right. It's a beautiful concept, and we've seen hundreds and hundreds of church planters implement that.
Yeah, part of my story, Steve, is I did the 3 to 4 year ask, and our church was self-sustaining by 3 years. So I called up supporters and said, I no longer need your support. A few heart attacks on the other side. I have never had anybody. So you want to know what they did? Some people doubled their support. Now, I wasn't going to turn any money away, but they just thought that was the most amazing thing. So yeah. Okay, one more question, and here's the thing that listeners need to hear. This is kind of a 2-part series. First one that we've been covering up to this point is just the why. So we're giving you not all the the little tidbits and the strategy. So one more question in there. And I understand there's different models of church planting. There's bivocational. We believe that that's viable. There can oftentimes be a strategic advantage of that.
Sure.
But besides what you mentioned above with personal growth and involving others, what's even the pragmatic advantage of raising full support, even as you think about it in the context of a church planter?
Well, you're really asking your friends, family, other churches, the people you've led to Christ and discipled, anybody that's been in your network over the years. And there's nothing wrong with approaching people you haven't met before, but why go to people you haven't met or ministered to when you've been spending your life reaching out and ministering to all these people, and you have these natural built-in relationships. So you want to go to them first. And really what you're asking them is, would you believe in me and this ministry vision that we have to plant this church in this area that's in desperate spiritual need? Will you free me up to focus on that fully? Now, you're right. There's examples in the scriptures of tent makers. That's certainly a valid option. Please don't say Paul. Paul only made tents in 3 cities, and he had a reason for each one. Acts 18 says that his preferred mode of operation was always full-time ministry, full-time preaching. Yeah. So, yes, tent making is one option, but even Paul preferred to be full-time. That was what he was focused on. So you're really asking this network of people, will you believe in me and my vision so much that you're going to free me up? And I promise you, I'm going to be praying and working and sacrificing, and your investment in us is going to have some great ROI, return on investment, lives changed. But that's really what you're asking them for, is to free you up full time to fully focus on this. And you're going to report back to them. That's why those newsletters are important, because I want to know. I'm on a lot of support teams. I want to know how our investment is doing.
Yeah. I think the freedom of time is so important, especially for church planters, because there isn't this very clear-cut schedule. And in the beginning, the church planter needs to be able to say yes to as much as they can. When they have a launch team member or potential launch team member that wants to meet for coffee, yep, I can do it. Or can you speak at this community event? Yes, I can do it. I mean, you just need that freedom and flexibility as much as possible. And so as you're doing the God ask, you're not just asking for financial resources. What people are doing is providing that freedom of time. Well, Steve, thanks so much for being part of this one.
Sure.
Thank you, listeners. But I want to invite you to make sure that you come back and listen next week, because we are going to tackle the hows. How do you raise that financial support? So for most church planters, that 3 to 5 year thing means raising $300,000+, which may just sound like a crazy and impossible amount. But in the next episode, Steve is going to share some of those very specific steps to be able to do that. So thanks so much for listening. And if you have a question, go to churchplantersask.com. You can leave us a message and join us next week.